All right, so I'm gonna put this video in chat. Obviously, if we are watching content from someone else, I want to make sure you guys are subscribed and liking their content as well. We don't want to be stealing any views. Yugioh TCG has problems. Obviously, this comes after Josh's switch to mostly TCG, and I imagine this comes in the wake of YCS Anaheim, where there were some not so desirable future matches. Instead of over speculating, let's listen to the video and we can engage in discussion.
Duelists, I'm tired. I hate that I have to make this video right now, but I need to vent. And I'm not tired because I've been streaming for 20 hours this weekend, watch partying YCS Anaheim with you guys together.
Yeah, it's like an 8-hour time difference. It's fucked. I didn't know you actually stayed awake the whole time. That's rough.
I'm tired of non-games in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I want to talk about that. And the reason why I want to talk about that right now is because I felt like YCS Anaheim was one of the worst viewing experiences I've had in a long time when it comes to a Yu-Gi-Oh! Event, maybe ever. And I'm not talking production quality, because that was pretty good, but I'm talking the actual gameplay, and I want to discuss that. I need to vent a little bit about the TCG.
I want to quickly comment that I'll provide my own, I guess, experiences from Anaheim, but I cannot speak to the feature matches because I was not watching them. I was obviously competing in the tournament. So I'm gonna have to take a lot of the stuff that he's saying at face value.
I've recently voiced some concerns with Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and why I'm taking a break from that at the moment, and I was pretty hyped to get into more TCG content and play more TCG myself, but I'm not gonna pretend like the TCG is some magical wonderland without any problems or any issues. And maybe that's also why I was very disappointed, especially this weekend, from YCS Anaheim, because I was looking forward to the TCG so much, because it was going to be my escape from Master Duel, and because I was actually a big fan of this format going into it. You know, like the pure Draco Tail, pure Yami, pure Mitsurugi three-way format, like, was actually looking pretty nice for me, and I had a great time at YCS Lille. But it feels like I was watching an entirely different format at YCS Anaheim, because all those quote-unquote fair decks, it felt like they didn't exist, or even worse, they existed, but they got completely clapped up by broken floodgates and broken combo decks. And it's a problem, and I want to talk about a little bit why I think that is. Chronologically, we're going to start in the finals, because that is the match that has the most eyes on it, and we're going to get into some other examples too. But for YCS Anaheim, let me set the stage for you here, okay?
Wait, I didn't know the Kamal main deck the Mjolnir. That's cancer.
YCS Anaheim finals is between Kamal Crooks and Cameron Neal, two of the most accomplished Yu-Gi-Oh! Players of all time, who are both capable of playing some of the best Yu-Gi-Oh! You will probably ever witness. Instead, what we get in the finals is the following thing. Kamal wins the dice roll, makes this board through 2 hand traps because he self-rolls away the Fuva and then is still able to make this board under his own roll through the opponent's Ghost Bell on top of that, locking Cameron Neal completely out of playing the game in game 1, which results in Cameron Neal, even though the finals is untimed, so they have no incentive to scoop early, to just pack up his cards immediately once he draws for turn. So not a single card was played on Cameron's turn. It's an Omni Negate through Cyber Dragon Infinity, it's a Ripper Hand Trap Negate, it's Tristaros, and there's an artifact Mjolnir, which, for those of you that don't know what this card does, you summon it to your opponent's side of the field during your turn using Imperial Princess Kunkri. And it locks the opponent out from special summoning anything but artifacts for 2 turns.
So I want to touch on this real quick. I don't know if Josh will bring this up later. I think Artifact Mjolnir is not the problem. And before you raise your pitchforks, I think the problem is this card, Queen Query. Because anything that gives your opponent a monster is typically a recipe for disasters, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards were not designed with that sort of facet in mind. And there are way too many cards that could be abused, and so not future-proof those cards to exist. I think Sanctifier should be banned. Thankfully, it does not work with Mjolnir, but regardless, I think those type of cards just should not exist. Quinquery is a prime example of that, and Mjolnir is not a good card, but it would not be playable without Quinquery. Quinquery is fine, there's no print cards with mandatory and archetype blocks. Nope, giving your opponent monsters, I'm biggest hater of.
Game 2, Cam makes this board, which is basically the full Mitsurugi board and the full Yami board in one deck through an Izuna, which causes Kamal to draw his card for turn and pack up his cards and scoop. 0 cards played on turn 2 once again. Game 3, Kamal goes first. Starts comboing. At this point, Cam doesn't even get a turn in this match because Cam uses a hand trap, gets called by the grave, knows what's coming, packs up his cards and leaves. The finals of this YCS was 3 turns. 0 cards were played on turn 2.
That's a pretty bad statistic. Yeah, wow, this was a terrible finals match.
And 2 of the best players in the game basically didn't play any Yu-Gi-Oh! With each other. I was pretty disappointed at this point. Of course, I was watching this live. It was also 4 a.m. in the morning for me, so I decided to just go to bed, wake up, and see how I feel about it. But I still feel pretty bad about it. We're going to start a discussion here on floodgates, broken combos. I think it all falls under one category, which is non-games in Yu-Gi-Oh! And when I say non-games, this is what I mean. I mean a game basically not happening because one of the players does not have a chance from the beginning. Like, it is not worth playing this game for Cameron Neal. He does not need to be there. He does not need to be part of game 1 and game 3 here. This might as well be a combo tutorial on YouTube by Kamal, where he just shows the cool combo he's found. And I don't know, of course this is subjective, but I don't think I'm in the minority here when I say I don't think this is good Yu-Gi-Oh! I do not feel like this is enjoyable.
Yeah, I obviously.
to watch. I also don't think it's enjoyable to play this type of Yu-Gi-Oh, especially if you're on the losing side. But even on the winning side, I feel like it feels kind of dull to do this. It feels like playing solitaire. And I probably wouldn't be making this video if this was the only instance of this happening, you know, because maybe like, I don't know, Kamal got lucky and Cam got unlucky, and this just like non-games happen in card games sometimes. You know, sometimes you just draw a very good hand or a very bad hand, or you just happen to have all the answers or whatever. A Yu-Gi-Oh game being a non-game occasionally is fine, but this weekend, the coverage was full of it. Brought up some examples from the YCS coverage. Once again, we see the Yami Mitsurugi deck, which is another topic I wanted to get into, is how Yami and Mitsurugi individually, I think, are pretty fine archetypes, but when for some reason they work together and make both boards at the same time, which is ludicrous in my opinion, which just teaches us a lesson about archetype design and archetypes needing proper locks. And I want to reiterate something, because a lot of people, we've seen a lot of Mitsurugi hybrids popping up, especially in recent weeks. I want to say that I think both things can be true. On the one hand, these inventions, these deck lists, like the Triff list that he won the YCS with, or the Jeff Jones list that he played at this YCS, where he combined K9 with Mitsurugi because he found a bridge. These are impressive creations. The Triff deck is also very impressive.
It's cool, yeah. I mean, you can have cool decks, and also like I don't think your deck should be entirely restrictive, right? Because then it becomes like other games where deck building means less. You definitely want creativity, but I understand the point.
But the gameplay it provides is not interesting, because you make these boards and you won the game. Congratulations. It's not just these combo decks. It's also, I mean, this exact match, literally fast forward a couple minutes, this is the board that Mitsurugi made. We activate Dimensional Fissure, we search Fossil Dyna Pachycephalo with Gallant Granite, we normal summon it, and we have an Omni Negate trap for the Lightning Storm.
With D-Fissure.
I think this is a problem, and I think it's been a problem for a long time, and I'm honestly getting frustrated.
What? Speak of the devil, and he appears, and Alex audibly goes, what? Yeah. So we can go ahead and normal summon this, and this card says neither player can special summon.
I've been pretty vocal about my dislike of some recent archetype designs, especially in 2024. The archetypes in 2025 are cool, but what's the point of having fair archetypes when the decks that are winning are the decks that are doing this? And even the fair archetypes, quote unquote, are not designed carefully enough, so they have synergies with, like, you know, searchable Fossil Dyna, and they can slap Dimensional Fissure and everything because that card is legal. Top 8 of this YCS. Alex Bergeron against Steven Trifonowski. Once again, two players probably capable of producing some very, very high quality Yu-Gi-Oh! What happens? Alex wins the dice roll, goes first with Onomat Ryzeal, a rogue deck, mind you, pretty much, tier 2. Goes first, uninterrupted, 4 material detonator Eclipse Twins attached, Ryzeal trap face down, Ryzeal cross up on the board, which is already a respectable pure Ryzeal board. You might think that's really strong, but that's not it. We've also hand looped 2 cards with Evil Swarm Ouroboros. That's why 2 cards are in Triff's graveyard here. And we've also searched Arch Nemesis Protoss, a card that lets you declare any attribute basically, and your opponent is unable to use that attribute. Josh
has like this whole PowerPoint lecture already. I respect it though. So far he hasn't really missed a beat. It's all like stuff I agree with. To be fair, I've complained about lingering floodgates since like my first YouTube videos, so yeah.
Game 2, Triff goes first and wins the game off of the back of 2 dimensional barriers over the course of multiple turns. It's hard to convey this in one screenshot, and I didn't want to watch through the entire thing, but double dimensional barrier essentially lets...
Barrier, fun.
And then game 3, same story. Goes first, double hand rip with Ouroboros, puts up Protoss, puts up Cross, puts up an Omni Negate counter trap for Onomat that we also searched. And Triff tries to play into it because there's no timer, and it might as well try because it's the last match or the last game of your tournament if you lose. But there was no real Yu-Gi-Oh being played. He just activated a couple of cards, got them all negated, or they didn't matter because he was under Protoss and then lost. It's pretty disheartening, honestly. And we also saw, for example, reigning world champion Julian Kotton, round 3 feature match, plays against pure Mitsurugi. So I'm like, okay, Mitsurugi against Draco Tail, that's a pretty hype matchup. We got a pretty good game 1 here, admittedly, and that's another topic because most of these things, not all of them, but a lot of these things are happening post-side, which is why I feel like the side deck as a concept should probably be reevaluated as well, because let's be real here, the side deck is a cool concept, but people are just using it to side deck the most crazy auto wins in the game. We see Julian going first in game 2, gets hit with a dimension shifter, can't play the game. So what do you do if you can't play the game? Yeah, right. You set a dimensional barrier and make it so that your opponent can't play the game, and then win the turn after, because now you're basically going first with the battle phase. And then game 3, Hanzi here on Mitsurugi activates Dimensional Fissure, doesn't have a play next to it even, but the Dimensional Fissure eventually is enough to win him the game. And Julian doesn't matter. Like the reigning champion, you lose to Dimensional Fissure pass because it doesn't matter who you are and how good you are. When your deck loses to Dimensional Fissure, you are not able to play the game. You can't show us how good you are at playing the game because you are not allowed to play the game. And the funniest in quotation marks, is what happened right after this feature match. I'm gonna show you what happened. So they go back to the casters after the winner's interview. There's a backup feature, by the way.
We have our bonus feature match going on right now, so we're gonna jump into some more Yu-Gi-Oh action. So let's just jump right into it. It looks like we are in game number 3. We have Tamir taking on Jesse, and Tamir's playing a deck that you're a pretty big fan of.
Spoilers. Tamir won this game. Different dimension ground. Another entry into the dimension family, you know.
I did say on video, this weekend that I hate all the dimension cards. I'm glad you're showing examples because now this is like good. I can actually follow along with the story. This is pretty funny.
In 15 minutes, we saw multiple games decided, multiple turns being skipped by the entire array of dimension cards. You know, Dimension Shifter was used to skip Julian's first turn, skip the turn right back with Dimensional Barrier, won game 3 off of the back of Dimensional Fissure, backup feature match. Looks like an interesting board state. Immediately 2 seconds into the match, a different dimension ground is flipped the game in.
And he's gonna follow it up with the Dimensional Fissure, and the smile on Alex's face is just eviscerated.
I guess.
I was very disappointed because I had high hopes in this format. I was and still am a big fan of some of the recent ban list decisions that they've made. But the problem is, it doesn't matter how good you handle certain archetypes or how well you address certain problems if you leave these problems completely unaddressed. I don't know how many ban list predictions, how many ban list wish lists in a row now I've mentioned cards like Dimensional Barrier, and it's just not happening. It feels like for every archetype, if you can name a synergy with a floodgate, you can name 5 floodgates that kills it. Like, it's just not fun. And then this does not, like, I personally, look, I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh for 20 years, but I cannot imagine anyone who isn't into Yu-Gi-Oh at the moment watching this YCS Game 1 finals. You don't know much about Yu-Gi-Oh. You watch this, you see the player going first doing solitaire for some time, player going second scoops, other way around, Cameron does some solitaire, Kamal scoops, Kamal does some solitaire and Cameron scoops. Who wants to play Yu-Gi-Oh after this if you're not playing Yu-Gi-Oh already? Who's picking up the game after seeing this? I don't know. If you understand what's going on here, you know this is pretty bad. And if you don't understand what's going on here, I feel like the majority of people would also think this is pretty bad, because it is very clear here that the player going second has no control in this game whatsoever.
I've always been like a kind of pusher for the number of turns don't matter, but the amount of interaction does. What that means is if the game only lasts 3 turns total, that's fine, as long as people are interacting throughout those 3 turns constantly. And that'll reflect in some more conversations I imagine we'll have as Josh says his solutions, because I can't imagine he just presents the problem and dips. There's still 5 minutes in the video, and then I'll engage with that.
This is not the full picture, of course. There is a lot of games where people play pure Draco Tail, pure Mitsurugi, pure Yami that are pretty fun when those cards aren't involved, but it could be so much better. It's not like they don't know these cards aren't the problem. If you look at Genesis format, Dimensional Barrier is 100 points in Genesis format. Weird. Protoss, 100 points in Genesis format as well. You name it. A lot of more niche floodgates are 100 points in Genesis format. It's almost like they understand. Someone somewhere knows that these cards don't provide fun gameplay, but somehow they're legal
they've known this. They banned them in Master Duel events. When I had to do like the content creator event, they banned them for that event. They know it's a problem. They're not idiots. Maybe they are, but not in that regard. I don't know.
It's rough. It's honestly rough, because I'm thinking like we have YCS Bologna in 6 weeks.
Yeah, this is going to be rough. Whenever a format lasts this long and there's this many events in one tight space, it gets kind of stale, because only 2 or 3 months, but we have one of those weird pockets where there's Lima, Lille, Anaheim, Brazil, then Pittsburgh, then Mexico, or then Bologna, then Mexico, all within the span of like 2 months. My experience was not as bad as what happened here, but that's largely in part to, again, looking at my deck list, I played very few of these floodgates. The only ones that were the hand trap ones. So by all means, I was engaging in fair Yu-Gi-Oh. People who played unfair Yu-Gi-Oh one. So yes, like I wasn't like that far off. I got 22nd. I was 1 loss away from top 8. This deck doesn't need those cards. I don't think this deck should be playing those cards. It's also why I think it's the most healthy deck right now. But there are some solutions, some ideas. I imagine Josh will bring up some of them, so I'll converse with it.
I don't want to say nothing happens, because some of these cards were hit, but it feels like
Shifter gets hit and you still get fucking double shifted.
it's weird to me that basically we're just playing turn skip and FTKs what felt like at this YCS like 50% of the time. It's not their fault. Don't hate the player. Criticize the game instead.
Okay, so we kind of touched upon some solutions here and some ways of approaching this dynamic, because I think this is a problem for sure, and it's not new either. I've advocated for stuff like this a lot, with lingering floodgates being a key sort of offender in creating this issue. What lingering floodgates do, for the most part, is they create a tempo skip. Now card's powerful enough that if you buy a 1 turn to tempo, like I remembered briefly before, it's not about the number of turns, but the number of interactions. But if we are under the kind of accepted offer that Yu-Gi-Oh is now not that many turns, that tempo is literally everything. So you need to find other ways of making up the interactions. So how do we fix that, right? And one of the solutions is something that I thought Konami was doing. And as part of the reason we liked the format a month ago, and I mean, I've said this already, and it is divisive, but I've been a strong pusher for this concept, and that is turn 0 plays. I liked Tier for that. I like 5 mana. I like Vanquish Soul. I like Kazuna. I think being able to play during both players' turns increases the amount of interaction that exists within Yu-Gi-Oh. And it feels weird that Konami kind of pushed out VS. That was one of the decks that did that, because it reopened this sort of floodgate for this to happen, right? Because these type of decks would do way worse into Vanquish Soul. That's part of the interesting thing, right? Because when your entire game plan is to skip 1 turn for tempo, if they're playing on every turn, including yours, skipping their turn is not the biggest deal. I think that is a pretty fair way to curb the power of these lingering floods, because it kind of returns Yu-Gi-Oh to the state of before, where skipping one turns with a tempo is not the end of the game immediately. So that is one solution, and it's one that I think I push for the most. I'm not a fan of sitting for 10 minutes and watching my opponent play, and you can still have good matches, but I think it's overall better when both players are constantly playing. So I think that is a solution, and one that I thought we were going in the direction of, and they still might, but it does feel a little weird with the way this list was approached. Now, there is 2 other things that are worth talking about, or 3 other things. One of them I don't think is a great solution, is what Josh is talking about, and this is archetypal locks. Outside of like end board pieces, I don't need archetypes to have crazy locks, because the thing is, when archetypes become very isolated and can only be used within their intended sort of theme, you get the xenophobic deck, right? That doesn't really reward innovation, doesn't allow creativity. I dislike that. I mean, it should be pretty obvious from the way you've seen me play Yu-Gi-Oh! So tier type of decks, Gem Knight combos, Beansmith stuff. I like mixing all my bullshit together and building a deck. I think that archetype locks can exist in some degree for maybe the most broken cards in the deck, or for boss cards, because that's how you make these crazy fields, when you combine boss monsters together. But when engines work in tandem to work together through fields and stuff, I'm cool with that. I think being more mindful with it, sure, but I don't know if I'd rush to say that those are the problems yet. Generic searchers might open up the road a little too much, because like Broad Bull, Ephemeral Imps, Gallon Granite, because Granite's now one of the defenders here. Like, I like when there's niche ways to bridge stuff together and you actually rely on synergies. But like Moon or Granite, probably Banshee as well, yeah, maybe too all-encompassing, right? And those cards only kind of grow in power as card pools expand. And when I was investing in cards back in the day, those are the type of cards I'd buy because I knew one day they'd be meta, including Gallon Granite. I had a lot of Gallon Granite, so I'm like, one day this card will just be insane. I just think that they need to be careful with them, because otherwise Yu-Gi-Oh loses part of the individuality it has, and that it allows more creative, flexible deck building, much more so than other games. And that is an element of the game that I want it to keep in its identity. The other 2 things, one of them is just banning them all. There are a lot of them, and it is hard to do that, and we may have to keep patching things up as we find new ones. Yeah, I mean, it's easy. I feel like this should be obvious. This is what the balance is supposed to exist for, and I do think that the balance should be a little more aggressive. And then the final approach, which is one that Josh mentioned briefly, and it's actually an interesting discussion that's been popped up several times on social media, and I don't know if I've engaged in it properly. And that is, we need to assess a side deck. And the reason behind asking that question is because the side deck is often where you'll find most of these toxic cards, because a lot of the cards are not good at either going first or second, and you have to make a choice. Oftentimes you're playing these tempo cards to cancel out your opponent's tempo cards. So maybe if they're not going to ban all these cards, or even if they do, maybe they should do this, you can argue maybe a side deck has now outlived its purpose and is only created for evil, or find some other rules as a way to balance them. The side deck, for the most part, has not been a tool for good, I think, is a pretty accurate statement. And what this means is it ends up a little more like Master Duel, and deck building has to be a little more toolbox related. You may have to make some concessions and choices. This can increase the matchup volatility. It also means cards that are strongly going first are less likely to be played. There will be some maybe that are still played, but for the most part, they're not crazy. I don't know. They're not insane. I still wouldn't like best of 1. I like best of 3 because it means that one game of unluckiness or breaking I can overcome, especially in not playing hundreds of games, nor do I want that to become duelist cup level formats. So I still want to maintain best 3's identity, but I don't mind getting rid of a side deck. Getting rid of a side deck also makes it easier for the time restrictions, because now that's, I'm going to say 4 minutes worth of gameplay that's now saved for actual gameplay, which is nice. Obviously, this is not something I play tested. I'm curious other people feel like that as well, but no side deck might be an actual legitimate Master Rule update to bring into Yu-Gi-Oh! You could add another buff though, right? You could say we've talked about, or I've seen talked about as like another addendum to the Master Rule, is neither player draws on their first turn, but going first you draw 5, going second you draw 6. So that means is you have an extra card to see a hand trap, and you get to more accurately make your decisions. It removes some skill in that you don't play around top decks, which is an important part of Yu-Gi-Oh! Playing against and with into making decisions, but it does mean that there's more control over the game state in theory. Some sort of additional addendum that, in addition to no side deck or akin to that, help going second. Maybe that's an answer. The one that I want to see first and foremost, surprisingly, it's not a balanced, because maybe I'm a cynic and I've given up on it. But the one I feel like can happen and should happen is really leaning more into playing on both players' turns. I think we should both be engaged at all times. This is not your turn, it's our turn. It's our game. We're dueling together. We are woven together into the fabric of the Duel Monsters realm, and we will duke it out with all of our strong glorious monsters. And that will drive away some people from Yu-Gi-Oh! But I think it is overall better for Yu-Gi-Oh's long-term health if that's the direction we take it. I don't want to sit and watch my opponent take a turn and then me take a turn. I'm not playing that type of board game. I'm not playing Pokemon. But I mean, I enjoy playing those games from time to time, don't get me wrong, but within Yu-Gi-Oh, I want there to be constant interaction choices made between the players. How come hand traps are ineffective currently? Why do we need stronger effects like K9? Because combo cards are getting stronger, which is natural with power creep and with the rotation. You just need both sides of the arms race to increase in power. It is, at the end of the day, an arms race. And if Konami doesn't do a good job of making sure they stay equivalent, then the game falls out of balance and we get shit. All right, well, I think Josh does have fair criticism here. I obviously didn't show all the feature matches. You guys can testify how bad or good they are. Again, I didn't get a chance to watch them, but the examples he gave were bad. But having not played any of the floodgates myself, I had a lot of interesting games. There were some that ended badly in these cancerous results. But for the most part, I actually had a good tournament experience. So it definitely exists out there, and there are solutions to make the problem better.